draw students around those themes, and then there could be cross-fertilization across programs, so they could walk from table to table and that sort of thing. So, that's what we tried, and the numbers, the show rates are pretty good. I think as by comparison as things go, and we had a total number of 543 prospects that we identified through that process. Not all of these showed, of course. We had 334 total attendees. So there are, these are the numbers so far who've actually completed applications. And so there's a whole analytics going on, so we're tracking every single student who either enrolled and didn't show versus those who did show, and then the funnel report all the way through. So we'll have some sense of how effective these were. We also did a survey, which I'm sure most, if hopefully not all, hopefully all of you, completed afterwards, a survey asking people for their feedback. And we also surveyed the participants themselves, the prospects themselves. And basically what we got in a nutshell, as you can see, that they, and this should come to no surprise, this is sort of what we figured, is the thing that they find by far the most valuable is interacting with the faculty and with students. Not very many programs brought students, but those that did bring students, the prospects love talking to students. That's their favorite part. The next favorite part is the faculty, and then the part they really don't like is being lectured to by people like me. And so they, overall they liked them. The Center City programs, medicine and nursing, having the shuttle to schlep them to Center City was, we always get some concerns about that. The resource fair at the beginning, also the presentation, the part of the presentation about the application process and financial aid, if you remember, those of you that were in attendance, those people felt was unnecessary, and I had the same impression. It was too long and unnecessary. You can basically just, these are people, it's not rocket science how you fill out the application. You can basically say, go to Slate, here's the site, figure it out. And if you have questions, you can talk to the people from EMSS that are there. Same with financial aid. So, rather than having lectures on those, just simply having a sentence or two, I think will suffice, and that will keep the introductory comments part of the presentation much shorter. So this was basically the feedback that we got. I mean, we got more than that. There was actually really extensive feedback. There were lots of quantitative data as well, but this is just anecdotally a high-level overview of some of the feedback we got. We also found that of the 5 events, 3 were on Saturdays, 2 were on weekday evenings, and the Saturday events were much better attended than the weekday events. So here's what we're proposing. We don't have the funds to do a full all-in, we don't have the funds to do a whole bunch of separate events this coming spring, but we would like to do one all-in event similar to what we did last spring. So this would be university-wide graduate studies. The difference with last spring is that this time we have some funds to advertise that much more broadly. So WHYY, et cetera, you'll be hearing about this all-in event. The date that we're proposing is March 18th. Why that particular date? It's because EMSS has been notified by at least 2, it's either 2 or 3, colleges that are bringing, it just so happens on that date, they're bringing cohorts of students, prospective master students, to campus. And they got buses where they're bringing them in, and it just so happens that they're all coming on that date. So we're like, hey, let's capitalize on that, and that gives us a jump start if we hold the event that date. Yesterday, I ran this by the associate deans, and I also ran it by the deans at the deans meeting. Both of those meetings happened to be yesterday, and both groups signed off on the date. So unless anybody in here is like super opposed and convince the deans and associate deans that that's a bad date, then I think that's what we're going to go with. So that's not much time, and I apologize. I know it's not much time. We're in January. It's a little more than 2 months away, but that hopefully will give us enough time to rally the troops and to get faculty and students there. And one thing I'd really encourage you, and I already mentioned this again to both the deans and associate deans, but if you can bring some students, they really are our best selling point. Of course, you have to handpick the students, right? You don't want to bring grumpy, unhappy students. But if you can pick some successful, well-spoken students to come to the event, that's really, really helpful. What we'll do with that is we'll use the lessons learned from these fall events, meaning that we'll keep the introductory part as brief and sort of broad and inclusive, but brief as possible, and then we'll break out into the academic sessions by college and program. For the fall, the current thinking, and this is, again, just beginning the conversation. No decision has been made, but just beginning the conversation, University Communications, EMSS, and the Graduate College, we've all met. We've begun the conversation with the associate deans, but what we're thinking about is going back to an all-in event, similar to the spring event, rather than the thematic approach. I think with the thematic approach, it was a nice idea, something good to try, but one thing is it was hard. It puts an extra burden on the faculty and professional staff when you have programs that cut across more than one theme, right? So take public health as an example. That really cuts across multiple themes. That means they had to be at, they didn't have to, but it was a good idea to be at multiple events. Entrepreneurship was at every single event of the 5. So that puts a big burden on the faculty. And then for the prospective students, they have to figure out, is this really, this event, or do I go to that event? And so if we have it all in, I think that, we're just advertising graduate studies at Drexel in general, and then that attracts everyone. And then we will then, of course, like I said, keep the centralized part of it as brief as possible, and then break out so that you then can do your own college and program-specific thing. So, LeBeau, for example, can do maybe they'll do a thing about LeBeau in general programs, and then break out into specific program-specific presentations. But that really, we'll work all of that out. But that's what we're thinking right now. We're thinking of having hopefully 3 events, at least 2, but I would prefer to have 3 in the fall along those lines. Again, that's not been decided for sure. That's just the initial thoughts. Any initial reactions? We'll have much more time to talk about that before we actually do anything, because it's for the fall. The other thing, though, I want to start planning this now so that hopefully within a few weeks, we know what we're going to be doing for the fall. We can lock down the dates. That way, there's plenty of time to plan, and you won't be getting hit with something, with 2 or 3 weeks to go. Any thoughts?
So the fall sessions will be in the summer?
No. Those would be in the fall. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was assuming that we would do those in summer to capture for fall enrollment.
Problem is most of the deadlines in the fall, even the programs that have fall deadlines, it's usually December 1st, December 15th, sometimes December 30th, the end of the year. And the summer, things are pretty quiet. There's not that many for graduate students. A lot of people aren't around as much. So probably makes more sense to do them in the fall. Now, the reason we need to do something in the spring is because there are programs, in LeBeau in particular, that heavy recruiting season is in the spring. So, we can't neglect the spring totally. What I'd like to do eventually is do more events in the spring too. But, and let me say again, I know you've heard me say this before, this in no way, these centralized events are to replace any program-specific or college-specific events that you're doing. Some colleges have really robust events that they're already doing internally. Both EMSS and the Grad College will help support those, so whatever we can do. Now that almost everybody has moved into Slate, Slate has functions that are very helpful for planning events. So we're already working with several colleges that are planning their own events. So doing these in no way gets in the way of doing your own events as well. Anything else? Yeah.
I remember the one open house we did was in second floor Pearlstein. It was way too small. I know we're limited as far as large spaces on the campus, but,
Yeah.
the space, acoustics.
Well, for nursing,
Biology,
yeah,
biomed,
okay.
you know.
Yeah, that's right, biomed now, sorry. I still think of you as nursing. Well, nursing is huge, but okay, so, well, that's important. So as we plan, again, if we can nail this down, but this is not, let me say again, this isn't done. This is just initial ideas, but if this is what's agreed to by the deans and everybody, and we nail this down, that gives us plenty of time to plan, so we can try to lock down spaces and be sure and bring that up in the, in the planning process. So I got to keep remembering you're in biomed now. You've only been there like 2 or 3 years. I was going to say 5 years. I'll forever see you over in CNHP.
Is there a way, I don't know if you want to, but to incentivize some people to
You read my mind. Were you in the meeting we had yesterday? We talked about exactly that. So the application fee issue, that's exactly right. So what we can do is waive application fees for people who attend this. And we didn't do that last time around, but we need it, as well as some units are already doing this, but we'd like to develop more virtual open houses, especially for international students. And so we can do the same thing there. If you attend a virtual open house, you can waive your application fee. So yes, that big incentive. So quickly, I just want to give you a snapshot of where we are to date with enrollments. So good news and bad news, mostly good news. So this was, a couple days ago. We have a dashboard now built out, finally, where the data have been vetted up and down and sideways and are actually accurate, because it took us way longer than it should have to get this built out. But we have it now, and it's good, and it's accurate. So what this is point in time. If you just look right now at the fall 16 and fall 17. Just compare these numbers for now. You can go back to 15. This is when we were at, here. This is when we were at our peak of graduate applications, graduate enrollments. But if you just look right now at these two numbers, what you see is overall applications are down a little bit, but completed apps are actually up. So what this is most likely due to is that application fee. So what the application fee seems to have done is to suppress the number of people who just start, who aren't all that interested and start an application but don't actually complete it. But our numbers of completed apps are up. The numbers of both offers and denies are up. And this is really good news, and this is largely to your credit, because what this means is that people are acting more quickly on the applications. And remember, we've had conversations about that, about our goal of a maximum of a 4-week turnaround decision time. And so we're now tracking that, and if people are falling behind the 4 weeks, then we notify them. And we still do have some, and that's accepting the programs where it's understood that they only review applications at particular time points once, and the applicants understand that and everything else. But otherwise, we want to get those turnaround times down. And I would like to see them even less than 4 weeks if possible, but at least 4 weeks. So what this means is people are doing a much better job of making decisions on the applications. And then, this is the good news right here. This is really the important part, is what are the deposits. And right now, these numbers are small. They could change, but at least the deposits are up. And that's been trending that way for the past couple of weeks. So completed apps are up, deposits are up. We can break this down by school, and we can break it down by program within school. And, this pattern tends to hold across most programs. There are some programs where completed apps are down, some programs when both completed and total apps are up. So it does vary, but if you can run your own Hyperion reports, but if anybody wants to come, stop by and take a look at these data, I have access to this dashboard. Adam Fontecchio, Nikki Kelly, and so just come on by, and we're happy to sit with you and break it down at any given time. So that's all for me on the grad enrollment side. Oh, and what I just showed you, by the way, those were master's numbers. PhDs, as you know, tend to follow the research agenda, so as the research programs grow, those grow. So it's really a different animal, and they're not meant to be revenue generating anyway. Professional doctorate, a lot of those programs are sort of fixed in terms of enrollments, right? MD, JD, can't really grow beyond a certain point. DPT, great program, but limited by clinical placements, and so it's about as big as it can get for the time being. EdD, there's room for growth. So there are programs professional doctoral programs that can grow some, but the vast majority of our capacity for growth is in master's programs. And so those are the data that I just showed you there, both online and face-to-face. So anything else on that subject? Okay, great. So Natalie, are you up next? Jason's up next.
I just want to provide 2 quick updates.
Wait a second, you gotta have.
We shared some of this last term when I came and met with you folks. There are 2 big initiatives that I've been working on. The first one has to do with the Graduate College Awards program that's been going on for a number of years. As you may recall, in the past, The graduate college awards were given to graduate students in 4 categories. They were given in math and engineering was one category, social sciences and humanities was another category, life and physical sciences was the third category, and the final one was arts and humanities, I believe. We're going to be making a change in that this year. The categories seem to be somewhat, they weren't arbitrary, but they were at some level not working with the population we had. We also had students that were questioning whether they belong in a life science or in a psychology, social sciences. So we're going to move forward with a program that allows one award, graduate level award per college. So there's going to be an engineering award and a education award for the School of Education. We'll then be using those award winners as the nominations for one university level award that'll be given in each of those areas. The second thing is the areas of the awards. The areas of the awards in the past were outstanding promise, which had to do with students that are impacting or likely to impact the reputation of the university. Outstanding dissertation. There was a outstanding research award, and there was some questions as to how those played out, and there was a teaching assistant excellence award. We've made some small changes in those categories. Instead of being outstanding research, we've moved from to an outstanding dissertation and what we're calling a pre-dissertation research award that's open to master's students as well as doctoral students that are at a pre-dissertation phase of their work. And based on some feedback from both advisors and faculty and staff, we're going to add an award this year focusing on community service and civic engagement. So I have a more detailed handout that kind of details the awards, the time frame, what an application packet looks like. The big change is going to be that in the past, the departments were kind of the clearing point for putting a nomination forward to the graduate college. In this case, the college is going to be kind of a first level clearinghouse for identifying one nomination coming from them that can go into the university award process. So we'll share, I have a detailed couple page document that we'll share about that, be on the lookout for that. The second thing is I've been spending a lot of time working on trying to identify areas of professional development for graduate students and to expand the graduate college's offerings in providing resources to graduate students that cut across the different colleges, different schools, different programs. So this isn't focusing on research or anything to have to do with a particular program, but having to do with the kinds of questions and things that probably don't get enough attention within the particular colleges or departments, or the things that happen around the water cooler that might be a little bit more programmed and formatted. We had our first inaugural professional development session for graduate students last November. It was focused on grant writing. We had a presenter from College of Engineering, from anthropology, and from the College of Medicine share some tips and advice and thoughts and resources about grant writing, and then had a Q&A with those presenters. It went really well. We had nearly 50 people here from across the university, including the College of Medicine and the different campuses. So it was really cool. Our next one is coming up on the 27th of January at 2 p.m., and it's focusing on an academic job search. We have Erin Horvat, who's the new Senior Vice President for Faculty Affairs at the university, as well as John Spanier, who is a faculty member from the College of Engineering, kind of trying to bring some interesting perspectives, both the university focus, and also John's led some interdisciplinary hires between engineering and physics, I believe. So we're going to kind of present, again, this is something that isn't going to happen at a particular college or department, something that can kind of cut across. We have, in the next coming months, we have one that's going to focus on potential after graduation, not careers, but first jobs as a postdoc. We have one that's coming up on teaching, distance-enabled, technology-enabled teaching, and one that's going to be focusing on non-academic jobs for graduate students. So be on the lookout. There'll be a flyer coming out with the detail and information. If you could, we would really love your help in kind of sharing this, posting this around, sharing it with your different student constituencies. It's really kind of cool. What was really cool for me was having so many different diverse people from different departments and different colleges around, essentially asking very similar questions, which is really something that was kind of cool. So those are my two updates. Does anyone have any questions about either of those two high-level points? Yeah.
Are these streamed online?
They are I'm drawing a blank on whether they were streamed online or recorded, but there was a camera here. I believe they were streamed. Okay, yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, on the ones where you're telling people how to do, how to get themselves in a position to be able to find a job, one of the questions I get a fair bit, it really deals with students who want to know what the pathway is, because they're not a citizen, what the pathway is getting an appropriate visa where they can stay and take a job. Go to Canada for a week and come back and get a job. So that might be a useful thing to include in some of those.
Great point. Awesome. Yep.
Regarding the awards that you were talking about earlier, I think that it sort of seems like it should be sort of scaled depending on the size of the college, because like the College of Engineering is obviously much bigger than some of the other ones and vice versa, so just having one from a College of Engineering compared to some of the smaller schools seems.
Sure, and we've spent a lot of time, and we're more than willing to look back at that. The fact is that what this proposal does for the larger colleges, it actually gives them more access to awards, because in the past, they were competing with the math and engineering folks for the university level awards. So this is, at some level, it's providing more access to the college level awards and then another level of award at the university level. So your point's well taken. There are larger schools with larger graduate populations. I think this is a step in that direction, but it's definitely worth looking into. The other obvious question is in College of Arts and Sciences, how to deal with the fundamental differences between the arts and the sciences, and we're going to handle that the way it has been handled in many other cases by allowing those two to be represented somewhat differently, like they are in other university events. But the point's well taken. Given this year, we're going to move forward with this, and if it ends up that is something we really want to pursue, we're definitely willing to take that up. If anyone has any other ideas for professional development, feel free to pass them along. I'm at Silverman at Drexel, and these ideas came from your feedback. We had a big survey that went out about, I guess, this time last year that asked you that question, and the topics for professional development came from the feedback we got from faculty, staff, and students. So that's our first cut, and we'll be moving forward with other ideas as we maybe exhaust that list.
And Jason, make sure you mention about Books and Bagels. This doesn't replace Books and Bagels.
Absolutely. This is, we're trying to run this staggered with Books and Bagels, which is a student-run interdisciplinary presentation series. This is really focused on, this is going to be faculty and staff presenting for the most part to students, Books and Bagels. The next Books and Bagels is coming up on the 20th, Friday at noon, down in the Graduate Student Lounge. So that's a very different focus, and we encourage you to share that information too. I think an alert went out pretty recently about that.
Despite the name, it's not just bagels. There's actually food there, and you're welcome. There's no food on as well. It varies. Sometimes not that many, and sometimes the room is bursting, so it's variable. I think if we got the word out, though, that there's actual food and not just bagels. Increase.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
So we saw your upcoming event on careers in academia, and the career services team at Steinberg is actually directing students to that because we often are working with candidates on their curriculum vitae for steps beyond their education. So whether that's CV or resume for industry, as they're transitioning a CV to resume. So often we work with candidates in that regard, and we have partnered with ISSS to host kind of what is the work authorization process like beyond. And so students, of any type are always welcome to come to those as well on work authorization that involves OPT and H-1B visa sponsorship. So there might be some real potential for collaboration and
Awesome.
cross-promotion. I'll reach out after this.
Awesome. Great. All right. Thank you all.
So I'm just going to use our website and show some of the stuff Jason mentioned. Books and Bagels is coming up first. It's the 20th, and it's on our website. Jason is actually the moderator. So, oops, this isn't it. It's here if you want to share, and I'll share the flyer for Books and Bagels and for coffee hours after. But if you want to share this with students beforehand, Jason's there. And then coffee hour is here. This is on the 27th. And we'll also share the flyer, but if you want to look at our website. One other thing we have coming up, major event this spring, is this new conference, the Drexel Emerging Graduate Scholars Conference. So this is with our graduate college, the GSA, it was their idea, and then the Office of Research is also co-sponsoring. It's April 27th. We're sending out a call for abstracts for an oral presentation, poster presentation, and the 3-minute thesis. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 3-minute thesis, but we do link out on our website under this 3-minute thesis. It's basically students have one slide in 3 minutes to present their thesis. So we're hoping to get submissions for that. The call will go out Monday, but students are free to submit now. The applications are online and they're live. They link from our website. And there will also be, I think Jason will work with the GSA, there's also going to be professional development events during this day. So even if students aren't necessarily selected for a poster or oral or the 3-minute thesis, they're still welcome to attend for the keynote speaker and some of the professional development events. So if you have any ideas for things that students are looking for, I think reach out to us or the GSA. And then oh, and then the fellowships is the last thing. So if you're not aware, our college, we give fellowships for PhD students, 10,000 over 2 years for gold and 4,000 over 2 years for the blue, and the nomination period is now open. So there's an online form that's on our website right here, and we just ask that it's submitted by the designee that's listed on our website, but faculty are able to nominate students, so if you need to share this with faculty or applicants, it's open now. That's it. Yeah.
I haven't clicked on the online portal,
Yep.
but I think I'm one of the submitters, so. Is it, like, is it something we could just attach a PDF?
Yes. So if you are familiar with the Drexel funding portal, it's through there. It's really simple. I tried to make it as simple as possible. You basically just have to put in like the student's name, email, your name and email, and then it's all one PDF that goes in. And there's no size limit. There's no, it should eliminate all the issues from last year.
Okay, so
And
if
then
somebody sends me a PDF. I
All
can
you'll
just
have to
do
do
the
is,
top level
yes,
and
yeah,
then attach.
yeah. So faculty or the nominators can basically do the load of the work, and then you just have to upload the PDF. Does anyone else have any questions? Just put that-
By the way, I just have to say, the conference is gonna be really cool. And those of you that haven't done it, check out the 3-minute thesis. It's linked to the website, or just Google 3-minute thesis. I was watching one of somebody in civil engineering talking about some research on making roads blacktop, some kind of new blacktop mechanism, macadam or whatever it is for roads, which sounds like the most boring topic in the world, and yet it was the way she did her 3-minute thesis made me want to go build a road. So good. So it really is an amazing event. So just check it out. It's really interesting. But I think it's going to be a really cool conference. And the great thing is we have such a great GSA right now, and the GSA is really taking the lead on this. This is really truly a student-run event. It's going to be very different than the old research day. If you remember the old research day, which was gigantic and cavernous and not good on lots of dimensions. And this is gonna be a much more intimate affair, just focused on graduate students, and smaller in size with cool keynotes and a 3-minute thesis and whatnot. So I think it's gonna be a really fun day. So please mark the date and help get the word out.
I do have one quick question. If a student has just graduated, within the graduating year, would they be eligible to still do this?
I would think so.
Because our timing for graduation is so different from school.
For 3-minute thesis, or
Or just to be involved in the poster presentation and some of those things.
We'll have to ask GSA, but we should definitely, specify that before the nomination period opens. So we'll do that today. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and let us know what, could you be in touch with Bonnie so you can talk about exactly what you mean in terms of timing, dates?
Yeah, because most of my students are in their, will be seniors and graduating at the end of this winter quarter.
So they graduate in December, so the question is, since this happens 2 months later, can you still do it? Okay, let's talk about that, figure it out.
Hi, everyone. Just a few concluding announcements. I know a few of you have reached out to Taz regarding commencement. So I'll just go over what we're looking at now. The commencement website is live, and it's up to date, and it's accurate, so this is a good thing. I think there'll be a lot of good changes as far as organization. Melissa England has reorged the collegiate team. So I know that all your colleges will have representatives on the collegiate team, so we're starting to meet at the end of the month. But as you saw in the university-wide announcement that President Fry sent out, it's Monday, June 12th and Tuesday, June 13th, and locations are either on campus or at the Mann Music Center, depending on the size of your college. And then on Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m., we're going back to Citizens Bank Park, which is probably going to be what we're going to be doing moving forward. As far as the doctoral ceremony, we are not having a doctoral ceremony this year. We are doing a celebration. We are working with EMSS and the Office of Protocol on figuring out what date that will be and what that event will look like. It will be on campus, yes. So stay tuned for details on that and invites, and we're starting to gear up and working on that.
Will it be a formal hooding?
We are not doing formal hooding separately. Hooding will be within the college ceremonies. So we've put them back in. So our team, who's usually in the past have been in the robing rooms to help the doctoral students line up, find their faculty advisors, that will be the same like we've done it, I guess, 2 years ago. When we did both. We did a ceremony, a recognition ceremony, and the hooding on the stage.
But the hooding will be at the college.
Hooding will be at the college level, yep. And we'll work with Melissa England to make sure that awards that we're working on, commencement awards, are within the programs and acknowledged by the deans in the script. So that is the change.
So just so everybody knows, the reason for this was last year, you recall we had a separate ceremony, formal graduation ceremony for the doctoral students. And the deans were split about half and half about what they preferred. Some liked that, they liked sort of having that special thing just for the doctoral students. And also there were some colleges that always get complaints from the parents of the undergraduate students who feel like that all the attention paid to the doctoral students in terms of the hooding process sort of detracts from the undergraduates, and so they like pulling the doctoral students out. Other colleges didn't. They wanted the doctoral students to be part of the larger ceremony, and especially those that have very, very small undergraduate populations, because what that left them with was a ceremony that was like teeny tiny, because you have your 10 undergraduates and then that's it. So there was a lot of discussion back and forth. We sort of were agnostic. We didn't, it doesn't matter to us. It's really a decision for the academic units. And the consensus overall was bring the doctoral students back into the individual college ceremonies. That's fine. But we still want to do a nice recognition. And so we'll have, a really nice sort of celebration of the doctoral students, separately before the actual formal ceremony. And it'll be here on campus. You guys all know plenty of food.
Tony?
Natalie, the
Yes.
commencement dates are the week after exams week, is that correct?
After, excuse me?
It's the week after exams week?
No, it's,
It's exams week?
yes.
Okay. I guess I should.
Yeah, I mean, now that we have Citizens Bank Park in the mix of trying to book it with the Philly schedule, there's a lot of date adjustments and things. But yes. Other announcements. I'm very excited. I don't think we have any of our student life colleagues in the room with us today, but Student Life has now reimagined and reinvented a position that existed in the past for grad student support. I don't know if you remember Jesse Donick, who was here several years ago, and then that role changed, but they have just hired a new, I think she's an assistant director of graduate and commuter student support, and her name is Caitlin Delengowski. She's going to be joining Drexel on January 23rd. She's coming from Jefferson. She has extensive experience with grad students and certainly commuter students, and they all are one and the same sometimes. But we're really excited to have her, so I really will invite her to a future meeting so she gets to know all of you. But we're excited to say that we have additional partnership and real presence in student life to help us support all of our grad students. So stay tuned. We'll introduce you as soon as she gets here. And then future meeting announcements. Originally, I think you may have seen on the agenda, there was a line item about AVT and form migration. That is, the grad forms are in perfect format right now, but they're not all of them are in AVT right now. So probably at our next meeting, I'll have Sean Brown and Joseph just go over what the grad forms look like in AVT, usage of them. I know a lot of you are probably already using them. And then the full migration probably of no more forms on the grad student website, grad college website, and everything being AVT so we can all drive to AVT, and many of you are already doing that. And then I know Taz in the future will, closer to commencement, probably around April, we'll talk about completion forms. And grad clearance dates and all of those items. And then other than that, that's all I have. It seems like James has an additional announcement.
Where's the little microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then one more thing, Nicole. I'll just briefly mention this, and if you want to chime in and add anything. So with graduate co-op, as you know, we have the first cohort, the first phase of graduate co-op now starting, and so these people are going to be going on co-op. They're matriculated into their programs. They're going to be going on to co-op this summer. There's been some difficulty. This wasn't totally unanticipated, but some difficulty with job creation for those individuals because, guess what? Just as we expected, most of them are international students. And in some of the areas, like computer science and that sort of thing, where you have security issues, it's made the job creation challenging. So Steinbright's doing their very best. Remember, they really don't want to cannibalize the undergraduate placements. They want to create new jobs. And I mentioned this to the deans and to the associate deans yesterday, but make sure you guys, because this is the group where the things actually happen, right? Where you have, is if there are any faculty who can assist Steinbright with possible leads for jobs in those fields where we have grad co-op right now, Steinbright's very welcome to, very open to help. So please kind of spread the word. And Nicole, you want to say anything more?
I would just emphasize additionally, if faculty have research assistants that they hire routinely, but are just really taking students as they express individual interest, they can have greater success by posting those jobs to our internal system, SCDC Online, so that all of these applicants would see them in one place, and they would be able to review resumes, and just a smoother process. And we're working closely with employers so that the hand-holding, so that process isn't an issue, is done to make it as seamless as possible.
So thanks, but any leads, especially in, computer science, engineering.
Especially electrical and information systems.
Yeah, so EE, information systems, any help would be appreciated. Any announcements from you guys? Any questions, thoughts, announcements? Anything at all?
One quick one. I was unaware that there were graduate forms available through AVT right now. Do you happen to know which forms are available to use starting, I guess, now?
Natalie or Taz?
I mean, they're the universal forms, they're not grad specific. The only forms that will not go into AVT are the D forms.
Okay.
Because that is a whole.
Yeah. And just a real quick update, because you guys have heard this before, but just a real quick update. You know that our attempt to put the D forms online, well-intentioned, but just to refresh your memory, we weren't going to wait on the university's IRT to do it because that would, put us in the queue. So we just jumped in and had a vendor build it out. But long story short, it didn't work well. We beta tested it with a couple of units who were gracious to help us, and it just wasn't working well. So we're back. We've scrapped that. We're going to build it out internally to put it online, but we want to do it in coordination with the whole IDP project, which we've talked about before. So because rather than having two separate things, an IDP and then D-forms, it makes more sense to go back and take a fresh look at the D-forms. Do we really need all those D-forms, or there's some that we can just scrap altogether, and then build that into the IDP process more broadly. So more to come on that. We'll be sharing it with you guys to get your input and feedback on that, but that's the status. So for the time being, it's status quo with the D-forms, but one day, hopefully, sooner rather than later, it'll be much more, it'll all be online, in the cloud, streamlined, and it'll actually be rational and not just historical.
James,
Except for chemistry. They will forever. No, chemistry, because Tony gives us a hard time. We're going to make them do extra D-forms in paper, delivered by hand by Tony himself, personally.
don't I get a free copy when I bring them over?
But we'll see.
You'll think about it.
We'll think about that.
What I was just going to say about putting forms online is that a rather critical technical aspect of it is that if a student comes to my office and we go on the computer and we start putting in a D-form, that we can save, then come back and continue later.
Absolutely.
I'm plagued by websites that want me to fill something out and then submit it.
Right.
And I get halfway through, 15 minutes, and then I need to do some information, and
Right. Yeah.
that's the end of it. I go back and start all
No,
over.
excellent point. And so all of those things, once we get the model built out of what we're talking about with the IDP process and the D-forms, we're going to sit with Tom DiChiaro and his team, and they've committed to working with us to make sure that all those exact kind of glitches get worked out. But you're absolutely right. And the whole idea, anyway, of having these things in the cloud is that the IDP needs to be repeatedly accessible by the faculty mentor, the program director, and the student, because you're going into it and updating it regularly as things happen. I mean, a minimum of once a year when you have your sit down with the student. But you need to be able to go into it, access it, tweak it, and not have it go away. So absolutely. Makes total sense. Okay. Anything else from you guys? Taz, Natalie, Tony.
Professor Haas wants to say something about RCR.
RCR, here's the thing. Hold the thoughts on RCR. Right before the meeting, I was in touch with Adam, and I said he needs to talk to the two of you in particular. So, and I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't want to raise that in front of the whole group because it's not as, I mean, we can, it's just that it's not relevant to everybody. It's more of a side issue. So,
Well, that is the problem with RCR as it's structured. It's not relevant to everybody.
we will discuss. Okay. Anything else? Okay, you guys enjoy your week.
Thank you, James.
Yep. Happy New Year. Thank you.